friends, and welcome to Pod Return to the Waking Sands. We are a Final Fantasy XIV companion lore podcast where we explore the story of Hydaelyn and beyond. I'm Jen, and I'm joined by my co-host and researcher.
I'm Levi.
Hello, Levi.
Today, we are resuming our Gridania main story quest. Before we get going, though, let's feature some Elezen lore. They are one of our last two peoples of Eorzea we've not talked about yet. Elezens are all over the Gridania and Black Shroud area.
Yeah.
This is because, as we know from earlier, the underground city of Gelmora was founded by both the Hyur and Elezen that traveled there to occupy open space near the Twelves Wood, but the elementals at the time would not allow them to cohabitate.
The elementals wouldn't let them cohabitate with them. The Hyurs and the Elezens certainly cohabitated.
Right, yes. And this was after a long period of conflict. Eventually, they said, okay, we're done fighting. Let's figure something out.
Good for them.
Right? Of course, the Hyur, as we discussed, are mainly fantasy humans. They're expansive and violent, blah, blah, blah. Elezen are kind of, but not really, typical fantasy elves. They are tall with pointed ears, like many elves are. Younger Elezen, though, are very short, and they have a huge growth spurt as they approach their adulthood. Like your typical elf, they are long-lived, but in this world, we're talking a few extra decades of their lifespan, not centuries or millennia. So if violence or disease or whatever doesn't get them first, they will break 100, but not much more so.
I mean, that seems not that impressive. Not that a lifespan serves to impress me.
Take that, Elezens.
But yeah, I guess, if Hyur's lifespan is similar to ours, 80 years old? If their average lifespan is 100, okay. I feel like it would be more, only because they don't, physically mature until they're, early 20s.
Humans in the real world also go through a physical maturation into the 20s as well. It's just that we have a more gradual increase in height. We don't go from 3 feet tall to 6 feet tall.
Wouldn't
or
that be
7
funny?
feet tall.
I feel like, though, that in 5th grade and 6th grade, that's kind of the height disparity between boys and girls, or at least biologically male. All of them were so short, and all of those of us who were biologically female were a head taller than them. It made for very funny middle school dances.
It's gotta suck though for the teen Elezen. They have to wear ponchos or something, because who's going to give them a set of clothes for every 2 weeks as they're gaining 3 feet in height?
Yeah, I would like to see an Elezen in transition. We only see them. We see them as children. We see them as adolescents, and then boom, adult. So I would think that the amount of time that we've spent with that we would see them getting a little bit taller, and then their mom would make them new outfits. But we don't. They stay the same size.
Also, in the elfish vein, the Elezen claim to be the first people to live in Eorzea. This may be true. They live like everyone else now, though. They live in cities. They live in the same type of homes. There's no mystical Elezen elfland that they retreat to after they've reached 5 millennia in age or something. They live lives just like everyone else does. There's no kind of mysticism that separates them.
Oh, like in Lord of the Rings.
Yes. That is the framework for a lot of elf characterizations in other fiction as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the decorative arts aesthetic has carried over from the Tolkien aesthetic, I guess, or at least popular culture's interpretation of the Tolkien aesthetic. The swirling asymmetry and the Art Nouveau lines, and that all carries into Final Fantasy when we talk about Elezen architecture and aesthetics.
Mainly Gridanian. I think that Ishgard, minor spoilers, is a real classical fantasy city, like a medieval type city. Yes.
So less there, but more in the decorations on their clothes and jewelry.
Sure.
It still carries over through all of that as well.
Yep. We've got two types of Elezens that are featured in this world. The one that we see most often are the Wildwood Elezen. These are your typical running around town being Elezen type Elezens.
Versus what, like the Ozark Elezens? Backwoods Elezens? Not running around town? Being spooky? Being weird?
Yes, that's correct. These are essentially the ones that you meet. The vast majority of the ones you interact with. There isn't much notable about them besides the physical features which set them apart from the other peoples, given their height and their very wide ear span. And that's about it. But these are the ones that founded Gelmora, is my understanding, because they used to live on the plains. They were chased from their plains home by the invading Hyur, which drove them underground. So the Wildwoods have these kind of plains type archery traditions and instrumentality. Mm-hmm. The other type are the dusk white Elezen. These tend to have darker hues to their skin. They tend towards grayish hues, but of course there's a whole palette to choose from when you're creating a dusk white character.
Just darker neutrals.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they reputedly have keener hearing than the Wildwoods do. The Dusk Whites emerged as a separate kind of offshoot of the Elezen people when the Gelmorans left Gelmora to go to the surface after they had forged their pact with the Elementals. And it's my understanding that the Wildwoods eschewed that relationship and they stayed underground.
You mean the Dusk Whites?
Excuse me, the Dusk Whites, yes.
Okay, so for how long? Like a couple centuries?
Still today.
Oh, okay.
They can go where they want to, obviously, now.
Oh, and they do. Yeah, we see them.
Yes.
We do see them about town, Levi.
Thank you, Jen. But we associate the Dusk White ancestry with cave dwellers.
Yes, and it's interesting because in our natural world, cave dwelling beings tend to be very pale, or they could have even translucent skin. But like axolotls and other things, like there's no need for melanin in their skin. So that's just like an interesting take. Like, okay, they live in dark caves underground, so therefore their skin tone is going to be darker neutrals.
The biology of this world does not obey the laws that we recognize in the real world.
Right, yes.
So we can't really speculate down scientific lines when you have the ethereal forces mucking things up on top of normal other like biological growth.
Fair. Yeah, we can try to make sense of things through the lens of being an earthling, but that only goes so far, and we have to realize that before we get too into these arguments.
Yep. However, there is a cultural trajectory for the Dusk Whites of rebelliousness and nonconformism.
Love it.
Presumably because they said, no, we're not going to go with you back to the surface.
We like it here.
We're going to do our own thing down here.
Yeah.
But that translates, though, into a bad rap for Dusk Whites in Gridania and surrounding region. And that's Elezens. Everyone we talk to today is going to be an Elezen, so there you go. On now to the main story quest.
Last time, we arrived in Gridania, and we did the normal, you have arrived in a city thing. We were on a cart, we got accosted with some bullshit, we made a friend, and we walked into the city, and we had to do some things to familiarize ourselves with the city. So visiting the market, visiting the Aetheryte, checking in with our guild master. That's basically it.
Our handler this time is Mother Miyun. She's a matronly Elezen, and she likes to call herself Mother. Mm-hmm. Mother likes that. Mother wants some of that good stuff.
Mommy like.
She says that.
She does.
She doesn't say mommy. She says mother likes that.
Yes.
Like almost
is
word
really
for word. Very
weird.
funny.
But yeah.
So Mother Miyun has sent us to go help out at the Bannock.
Yeah, we are going to see Galfred. I think he's a Hyur. He is not Elezen. Of course, he has like a mask on and a helmet, and they're unsettling just because you can't see eyes. There's something more unsettling about those than the Ul'dah masks. I don't know why. Just these black holes in your face.
So we're here with Galfred. This is, as mentioned, the Bannock. A bannock is a type of flatbread, and the name of the area could come either from this massive flattened stump, which is used for training by the twin adders, which are kind of the army. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about the grand companies in a little bit. But anyways, the bannock could refer to this training stump, or it could refer to the rations that are eaten by the twin adders.
I like how there are a number of areas around the 12's Wood that utilize these massive stumps, like, beyond sequoia size. And I don't think you really see a ton of trees in the 12's Wood that are this enormous, where they're, 75 feet across or larger. But I love how they incorporate them. The Aetheryte Plaza at Bent Branch Meadows utilizes them. There's one of the structures we visit out in the 12's Wood has this like amazing split level. Like there's a house, but it's also integrated into the enormous stump, and the stump is basically like their backyard and their patio. And I'm like, this is great. I would love this in real life.
It seems like a pain to maintain.
Oh my god.
Because it's in the earth itself. So moisture is going to be a huge issue. Guarantee you got termites or whatever coming up.
Oh my god. You sound like a homeowner.
1, rude. 2,
yeah, that's how you sound.
Stump dreams dashed.
Hey, you know what? It's just like having a lawn. A lot of maintenance.
So, we're here with Galfred still. There's a weird beat here as he gives us our mission, where we go from being nagged by the Wood Whalers 5 in-game minutes ago, back at the inn in Gridania, where they're like, look at you, fresh off the cart, some kind of scrub. You better watch yourself.
Yeah, we don't like outsiders, blah, blah.
And now Galfred starts talking about our tireless efforts in proving ourselves a friend to Gridania. We haven't done anything of note so far. It feels like some quest steps got cut here, and the dialogue wasn't updated.
Oh my god, I totally missed that. Because literally all we've done is like check in.
Yes. So unless me doing side quests in Gridania, like in the city itself, but unless that trips some flag to make him think I'm a bro all of a sudden, then I've done nothing of note that should make me a friend to the Wood. But anyways, maybe he got some bad intel. So he has a secret mission for us. The rise in Ixali aggressiveness has corresponded with the appearance of a stranger in the wood. Mm. This unknown person has proven adept at evading the adders. Galfred helps that a lone adventurer, being ourselves, will be more adept at tracking them down and not tipping our hand prematurely.
It's a good strategy.
And convenient for us.
Perfect. We want to do some stuff. We're here to adventure.
Our quarry is supposedly up at the Life Mind stump. The walk up here really showcases the aesthetic appeal of the 12's Wood. We have a rocky path that winds up against a cliffside that goes behind a waterfall that is cut by a rainbow. This is about as scenic as it gets.
I think this is, despite having 1,600 plus hours in this game, I think this was the first time I had ever been in this spot.
There's no reason to otherwise, so
yeah,
probably.
No, I just, I thought I'd seen all the things. I had never seen the Life Mind stump.
About the stump, this is a more natural-sized stump. It's not enormous.
Yes, this is like redwood sized.
Right. It's topped with a decorative circle of stones, nuts, and leaves. And I tried very hard to figure out what this was, and I came up dry, except I found some random wiki that says that the Gridanians will leave items here for the Mughals to mend.
I was going to say, I feel like it's Mughal related somehow.
I don't know where this came from, this information, so citation needed, but it's all I found on the stump.
Interesting. Seems inconvenient.
It was.
Okay.
Anyway, this stump is marred by a curved, elegant blade embedded into the top of the stump.
Yeah, so this is where we become king.
No.
Right? The lady in the stump. Hot.
That's the discount King Arthur mythology. As we inspect the sword, a trio of noteworthy characters comes to interrupt us.
Oh dear, is that a sword in the stump? Bad idea. Really bad idea. It takes a lot less than that to incite the green wrath, you know. Why, the first time we came to the 12's Wood, we almost ended up as a stranger dinner, just for crashing our airship in the wrong place. No, it was all Papolino's.
This is a Mughal Kuplo Kop. the same one that met us on the way into Gridania in the first place. And then a monocle-wearing Lalafell called a short-tempered thaumaturge, or Papalimo. And then a Hyur lady that's wearing a perforated leather mask like the brass blades do. This is an animated pugilist, or Ida is her name.
Yeah, we don't get their real names until a couple
right
levels.
after the cutscene.
Really? No, they don't introduce themselves until...
Galfred tells us their names when we get back to the stump, to
really?
the Bannock. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Before we go on, though, I've got a comment on this scene. This is the whole voiced cutscene, very elaborate for this tier of game.
Yeah.
But it's super bizarre because it feels like we're an NPC in the Final Fantasy game that features Papalimo, Ida, and Kuplo Kop as the main characters.
Yeah.
Because they roll up here, they're talking to each other. We stare at them like an idiot as they're going about their business, doing their story, talking about their problems. We get into a fight. The damage we deal is next to nothing to these enemies coming up. Whereas both Ida and Papalimo are destroying these enemies. Like, we can do nothing and it will not change the outcome of the fight.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. And then Papalimo will get like a fire off and then suddenly like, that health is decimated.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
It's like we're the Wood Whalers in the Conjurer instance.
I know.
that don't do anything but take up space and lose health. And they're the main character doing the stuff.
And that's okay, because one, we are a brand new fucking adventurer. We don't know, even though we are special, we don't really know a lot. So it just gives us an opportunity to see, I guess, how powerful they are.
What's weird, though, is that in the Limsa and the Ul'dah equivalents, we do a normal amount of damage.
Right.
We get help from our friend in those cutscenes, but we are not useless. This one is just like, well, nope, everything's too tough for you, but these guys got it covered. And then we pass out after that, and they are busy talking to each other and solving their mystery while we wake up, and then they leave, and they barely give us a glance. It's like we're the dumbass NPC in their story.
If the Gridania story was my first introduction to the game versus it being the last MSQ, only in that latter scenario is there something to compare it to, so now it seems odd. Honestly, it was kind of refreshing. And also having, a pair. So we have these scholars that stumble upon this, or, we kind of stumble upon their search for this mysterious individual. And we get wrapped up in it. But other than that, I don't know. Like, for some reason, I with Ida and Papalimo, they're very much like they have their own little dynamic going on. And Ida, I think, is very distractible. And Papalimo is very, literally they're like the odd couple. So it didn't strike me as odd as it did you.
I don't think that the game lets us be a hero for a good while. Here's your corner where you can be cool in, but it's not like you're the star for a good number of levels. So I don't think that this segment is noteworthy in that it backseats you, because you don't get to be a special person until a good while from now.
Mm-hmm. So do you attribute the lack of interaction between the Warrior of Light and Ida and Papalimo to simply like a design decision?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if I were to do like a role-playing game, for instance, I would never stick the player characters in a scene where two NPCs are talking to each other and the players are just watching, unless they were specifically trying to like eavesdrop on someone or otherwise. But if they are part of the scene, then they are going to be part of the scene, because 3 to 5 people don't want to spend their afternoon listening to me talk to myself. They want to be engaged with what's going on. So if there was going to be a scene in a role-playing game, like a pen and paper role-playing game, I would never do this kind of thing, because this is just making the players listen to my fan fiction pretty much. Whereas the whole part is to take part in it and to influence things as your player character. As a video game, you can't have the same adaptivity and same input as you can with an actual like pen and paper RPG, because this is all programmed. But at least in these things, they give your character a part in the scene. Whereas here we have zero part, the exact same thing can unfold without our being here whatsoever. We make zero difference to this, and we're not acknowledged. It's just the Papalymo, Ida, and Kuplo show.
How rude.
They are very rude, I will agree. And again, like, I'm not mad at the scene. I don't think it's necessarily bad or offensive. I just think it's very odd that we get this treatment in this one scene, especially in contrast to the other two, where the characters present will interact with us and engage with us and either tell us what's going on or deliberately obfuscate from us what's going on, depending on their preferences, but we are a counterpart to their interaction.
This is true. We seem more like a key participant. And here, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're kind of checking up on the same issue, but Papalymo and Ida know more information about what's going on, whereas we're just doing what Galfred has asked us, and we haven't put anything together yet. This is just like a one-off mission, so we don't have anything really to add other than this is what's happened to me, this is what I've seen. I hope it informs your investigation.
In the other locations, this point in the story serves to introduce us to the meta plot. So we don't know shit when we go into any of these things, but we get drawn into it. We get talked next to in the Gridania one about what's going on, and we can overhear them talking and understand what's going on, but we are not invited to take part in the story. We are witnessing a story unfold.
Right.
Anyway, these guys show up. They are worried that this stump sabotage is going to spur the Green Wrath, which, as we talked about last time, the Green Wrath is the wrath of the Elementals. I'm not clear at this point in time on if that's actually a threat, because they seem a lot less potent these days than they did before the calamity. Ida goes off about how when they first got there, there's this whole to-do about them offending the Elementals. The scene does another strange thing here. It has one character talking with voiced lines in the background, while another character is actually the focus of the camera and focus of the subtitles. So there'll be one person who is actually talking as the person of interest right then, but there'll be voice going on in the background from the other person just rambling on about something.
I thought this was really cute. And I thought it spoke to the dynamic between these two people really well. How one is prone to distraction and rambling and blah, blah, blah. And then, one is actually saying things of maybe a little bit more substance that we should be paying attention to. I thought that was adorable.
I think that's the point of it, was to show you their dynamic and how attuned they are with one another. I think it's successful in that sense. I don't know from a presentation or from a direction standpoint if it's especially successful. I thought my game had bugged out when that first happened.
It's never happened before in the game.
Or never again in this way. But it felt like there's something wrong with the audio triggers, because I had one person who was speaking at almost like a normal volume. She gets faded out a little bit. Ida just rambled in the background while Papalymo was talking to me, and it was hard to make out what was being said because they're both talking over one another. So this is interesting from a characterization standpoint. I don't think it's the most successful as far as the actual implementation goes.
Yes, it was kind of hard to, if you didn't have the text there to read, it would have been very difficult to understand. So yeah, they could have, I guess, dialed that in a little bit differently, but I do appreciate that they did it all the same.
I think that when this happens in other media, they tend to kind of really drone out the person in the background to make it near incomprehensible. Right.
Just kind of like a vague drone in the background, but also I think the camera work would have added something here too. If typically when you're watching somebody speak, it's like extreme close up, like their face is the screen. So if they had zoomed out and you had seen the two of you in the foreground, but in the background you could see Ida kind of maybe wandering around and mumbling to herself, with maybe a little speech bubble popping up in there, that would have been different. But I think that would have been also just as jarring, because that sort of camera work doesn't happen when there's a dialogue between two characters or between you and another character.
Sure. But anyway, though, they are momentarily concerned that we are the ones who stabbed the stump, but then the Mughal Kuplo cop vouches for us, telling them that we're legit because we go way back to 30 minutes ago when we met on the cart.
Right.
So we're the real deal. We didn't do this. Thanks, Kuplo, for the vouch. Once they're assured that we are not the culprit, then Ida and Papalymo go on to discuss their findings with one another while we listen on from the background. So they're going on about how the forest is extra sensitive since the calamity, which goes back to our corruption theorizing from last episode. But on cue, an angered treant comes into view and assaults us. We can infer this guy is riled up by the overall level of disruption, or maybe the elementals are pissed the stump got stabbed, so then the treant is now angry too. It's not explained, but something is amiss, and this thing is riled up because of the overall imbalance in the local area. It charges us, and we get into our fight.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this before, where it's an odd fight compared to the others we had before. We're the main character, we're the main, sparring partner with whoever it is or whatever it is, and our scholar friend is doing the healing, or that's basically it, doing the healing, if they're there at all. This adds to the old, third wheel vibe, where the damage we're doing is very minimal, and it's clear that Papalymo and Ida are doing the bulk of the damage, and we, instead of kind of standing off and letting us do the adventurer bit, there's like a couple of big fat treants, and then of course ads keep on spawning, and this was I was worried there for a bit doing this fight. I'm like, I don't think I'm able to handle that, which is a really weird feeling because normally I can just melt anything. Because it's not really about like beating the thing, it's part of the story. So it's typically an easy fight. But this was less easy, and it made me nervous for a hot second.
They beat the treant. Afterwards, we find our little blue crystal on the ground. We pick it up, we faint and have the vision where we meet Hydaelyn, just like in the other quest lines. Later on, we awaken and find Papalymo and Ida inspecting a dead Ixal chieftain, who they theorize is the one that actually sabotaged this stump. Yes,
which is odd that an Ixal would, 1, venture this far into the 12's wood, and 2, start some shit, some unfathomable shit. Unfathomable to us at this moment anyway.
Sure. It's odd that they're so close to Gridania. That's the main detail, I think.
Yeah.
They head off to go do their business, and they casually mention on the way out that maybe we should take that blade back to Galfred.
He's the one who is trying to, he wanted us to figure out who this mysterious stranger was. This event is most likely, definitely connected to mysterious stranger thing. And it makes sense that we would bring back the evidence for him to examine.
Understood. Over and out. Kaboom!
We bring the blade back to Galfred. He confirms what was discussed by Ida and Papalymo, saying, yes, this is an Ixal ritual blade. That's weird. Oh, here's some errands for you. And we're about to get into some Gridania-ass errands here. This is just like the Ul'dah levels 5 through 10 quest line, where there's an errand, we talk to one person, they have us do one thing, we turn the quest in, they pawn us off to the next person. It's a series of empty names, essentially in sequence, where we do some grindy MMO-style quests.
Yep.
Galfred kicks us over to Monrangan at Gilbert's Spire, but we have to finish up an errand first. We have to kill some Chigos for their egg sacs and drop them off at the spire. Chigos are giant mosquitoes. We kill a few and then head a short distance away to the spire. Gilbert's Spire is just a big wooden watchtower. We give Monrangan, whatever. We give him the eggs, and he explains that they inspect these eggs for signs of the creeping death. This is a disease that is very dangerous to the Hurian population. More errands. Next up, we have to go recover some abandoned surveying equipment that was dropped by a new recruit from the Adders. They were sent out to do some surveying. They got spooked by some enemies, they dropped the equipment, and then they ran away. So we're here now to go and recover it and drop it off to its intended recipient, who is...
a hearer.
Hearer Pauline. We find the equipment scattered in this river tunnel. It's infested with Eorzens. Eorzens are like giant daddy long legs.
With viper heads.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
They usually appear in aquatic environments like rivers and lakes. I infer the legs are there to keep their bodies dry.
Yeah, that's interesting. They're it's either like bogs, swamps, or little creeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
They just wait around there and I'm assuming chomp down on
Fish or
fish
something.
or
Each other.
amphibians or adventurers, as the case may be.
Yep.
We fight them off, and we recover the equipment, and we drop it off with Hearer Pauline. She tells us that this gear is there to survey the 12's wood and to take in changes that were wrought by the calamity, so they can update their records from the changes that happened during that big event. Next errand. Now we're going to go and wage war against some Annals for Pauline.
Just go and cull a couple of these guys, which we do, and...
Let's not forget, we are killing their eggs too.
Well, I was getting to that.
Okay.
So you have to kill a few of these, I don't know, 6 or 8, something like that. But then also grab one of their eggs so that we can make sure that the second generation, or not the second, but the next generation is less numerous and belligerent.
The Annals are little raptor guys, like dinosaur
Scalekin.
raptor guys.
Yeah.
Yes. They live in the mountains, but they have overpopulated the area, so they're descending now down to the 12's wood to hunt.
Which is the go-to justification for killing anything and to practice your fighting skills. Just is, to rebalance. So that's what we do. We grab an egg and we take it back. My character that's doing this is a Lullafell, and this egg was the same size as her entire body. I don't know where she put it. I don't know how she carried it, but she did because she's a badass. So we take the egg back to Pauline. She's like, oh, fuck, that's great. You know who's going to love this? Galfred. He's going to feed it to his dudes, and they're going to be stoked. And that's exactly what happens.
So they make Annal omelet, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's like the size of 3 ostrich eggs.
Yeah. Finally, some plot. So now that we're back at Galfred, we get tapped for some work. There is a crisis at Spirit Hold. Spirit Hold is an underground ruin that was built by the Gelmorans.
Not underground.
It is partially underground.
Well, it's multi-level. So you go in on the surface and you go up some stairs, but then you're also then suddenly at the bottom of this massive tree and it feels subterranean. So obviously there's a lot of topographical...
Can we call it semi-surface?
Sure.
Is that a compromise?
Okay.
Right.
It's a split-level dungeon.
Is a semi-surface ruin that was built by the Gelmorans. It was later used by the Gridanians as a prison, and it's been abandoned since the calamity. The whole area is a cut stone, like a cobble path going upstairs into this cliffside that goes through a cut stone gate. The stairs continue until they reach this underground or semi-underground section, depending on who you ask, where they have this chamber that it has several cells lining it, which is presumably the prison. The whole area is infested with imps.
Mm-hmm.
Like the little winged void scent.
Yep, trickster imps.
It sounds like a hearer has departed to Spirit Hold in order to offer it back to the forest by means of the rite of returning.
Yes.
The rite of returning, as we can infer from what we hear in a little bit, is a ritual by which we say, thank you, elementals, for giving us this crumb of land for our nefarious civilized purposes. We're done with it. We now give it back to you. We were just borrowing it in the first place. Right.
So it'll now, go back to the 12's wood and it'll become overgrown and like an artificial reef of a sort.
Yep. However, some shadowy figure has menaced the hearer's party and chaos has been wrought amongst them. Some fled, some are trapped in the ruin. However, just at this time, the local forces have been drawn away by an Ixel attack. Coincidence?
Suspish.
Probably not.
So it's not a shadowy figure. They refer to it as literally a shadow, which who knows what the fuck that means, but it seems a lot creepier, I think. Like they were terrorized by a shadow. Yeah, so whatever it is, it has overcome a group of wood whalers and conjurers. About half a dozen of them are still trapped in the Spirit Hold.
We head up here, killing imps and saving the trapped hearer's party along the way. They go running once we find them cowering amongst the ruins. And eventually we find the hearer himself inside the underground portion of Spirit Hold. Our rescue, though, is interrupted by a lurking black-robed mage. This is the shadow figure.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is our black-masked Ascian, who summons, once again, a clay golem to fight us. This is probably the least fanfare this fight's had. We roll into the room, he intones his spell immediately, and out comes his clay golem. And we fight it inside this underground ruin. We, of course, beat it. And we reveal to the Ascian that we are no normal adventurer. Because never before has this creature been so sorely tested as it has now.
Yeah, no one beats this clay golem of mine. Except for this person. They must be special. Like, fuck yeah, we're special.
Well, don't hold on to that feeling too much, because Papalymo and Ida rush up just now.
Here we go.
They curse,
knock us down a peg.
They curse the escape of the Ascian, but are like, oh, you're here. How's it going? Unfortunately, we are overcome by a vision and flash back to the past.
So it's like pre-calamity and then post-calamity.
This is flashing back to Ida and Papalymo's past, like we do in this segment. We see our scholar's history. The first scene has Ida and Papalymo spying on Ixal in the Twelves Wood. They are wondering if they're going to summon a primal. This is back in the old 1.0 pre-calamity days. Time flashes forward again, and they're surveying flora that is suffering beneath the ethereal effects of the red moon Dalamud, which you can see looming in the sky in this flashback.
Yes, they're encountering a lot of withering.
Yes.
Right, we flash forward again. They're still in the Twelves Wood. This is their territory. And examining some of the ethereal disturbances that have been present since the calamity. This is post-calamity. Ida's complaining about her etherometer because it's clunky, it's ugly, and Papalymo is like, this is cutting edge Charlian technology, to show some respect. Like this interaction and some of the previous interactions we've seen between them, it's clear that Ida has either she's like super laid back and casual, she has like a different background than Papalymo. Like we've seen, she's distractible. I think just kind of the overall like caliber of her conversation, so something seems like the two personalities, at least, well, Ida's personality compared to the other scholars, quote unquote, that we've seen so far is very different. I don't know. I've always really liked Ida. I think she's really cute. She seems kind of ditzy, but these two are they're excellent together, clearly.
Well, what is she? She's an animated pugilist.
Animated pugilist. That's literally, yes, she's very animated. She's very bubbly, but she comes across as kind of ditzy. Papalymo is very much the opposite. He's very serious, trying to keep her on task. Then, this scene, I think, is immediately prior to them meeting us at the Life Men Stump.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's on brand for these flashbacks. We get one scene of the scholar with their aetherometer, and they sense the disturbance right where we are. And they rush over, and that's when we meet them.
Yep.
We come out of our vision. Ida is wondering why we spaced out for a moment, but Papalymo doesn't give a shit. He's talking to the hearer right now and inspecting the real problem here.
Was it because this time we didn't faint, right? We just kind of like glazed over.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The fainting is just when we pick up the crystal.
Right.
Papalymo is talking about the failed rite of returning might anger the elementals.
Yeah, we need to get this ritual back on track right away.
Because it's like an unfulfilled promise.
Right.
They will escort the hero back to safety. Don't worry, we got this covered. I guess we're going to go back and see Mother Miyun, because we got nothing else going on.
Yep. Hey, Mother, let me tell you about my day. Whoo, boy.
Mother is impressed.
Mommy like.
And she gives us an in-room on the house.
Yeah, all the adventurer stuff is open to us now. We've got leave quests. We've got the in-room. We've got the guild tests. That's it, yeah.
That's it. Our next job will be at the Bent Branch Meadows, but we'll take a break here, you and me, Jen, until next time.
For Phase 3.
It's been hinted at, but the meta plot here seems to be that the Ascians are trying to drive a wedge between the Elementals and the Gridanians. This is with them getting the Ixals to
stab a stump.
So they have the Ixal involved here to get the Elementals stirred up. They are also trying to interfere with the relationship directly, such as trying to break this rite of returning to
further disrupt that relationship.
Yes.
That requires a lot of attention.
Yes. We don't know the exact purpose of these things. All we know is that in every single MSQ, the Ascians are trying to empower the Beastmen against the city.
They're just starting drama. Yeah.
Yes. And that's presumably to sow chaos amongst them so they cannot resist whatever is coming next.
Correct. Yeah. Like, we're already spread so thin. Just make it even worse.
It's interesting because, like we talked about in the first Gridania episode, the Empire used similar tactics of trying to piss off the Elementals against the Gridanians. This is so little content, but we're at level 10. We've done the first leg of our MSQ here. I even feel like there's more going on in Ul'dah, even though levels 5 through 10 was the same run around a bunch and do side quests. It feels like we covered more ground there, but maybe I'm just overinflating it in my memory.
Probably, just because for both of us, that was the first, our first city.
I'm talking about our recent playthrough. Maybe it's because we went from Black Brush to Horizon and back again in that phase. So maybe it's just that we covered more ground.
Yeah.
Because we stay in the east part of Central Shroud this entire time.
Yes. So there's that. Also, there's the looming specter of you just hating the Gridanian aesthetic in general. It's just fantasy light, copy paste, like fuck it.
I didn't come here to hate on Gridania. I was hoping to have my mind changed from my earlier impressions, but it's not done a great job yet.
Well, I guess we'll see how Phase 3 treats us all.
I really wish we actually got more FaceTime with Ida and Papalemo, because I like these characters.
Same.
They're just too busy for us right now.
Yeah, they have a very special relationship, clearly.
Yeah.
Despite them being like kind of polar opposites.
Next time, we'll be talking about the Lancer class. I'm looking forward to this one. My recollection is this is a fun questline. I hope I'm not misremembering.
Me too.
Great.
Thank you again for listening. And if you would like to get in touch with us in some capacity, you could tweet at us at podreturn, or you can send us an email at podreturnffxiv@gmail.com. Otherwise, we will see you next time.
Understood. Over and out.